Welcome to Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel. With helpful travel tips, news and events, destination profiles, great stories, and expert advice from seasoned and experienced traveling anglers, this is your backstage pass to the world of fishing travel. Waypoints is fueled by adventure and brought to you by Yellow Dog Flyfishing, a hands-on specialty travel and booking company that delivers the industry's very best insider knowledge, logistical support, and trip preparation. Freshwater or saltwater, international or domestic, Yellow Dog has you covered. And now your host, Yellow Dog founder and director, Jim Klug.
Ocean Active Fly is the first fly fishing operation established in the Middle East, a company dedicated specifically to catch and release fly fishing trips in one of the most unusual places on the planet. My guest today is Nick Bowles, the owner and founder of Ocean Active, and hands down one of the most cutting-edge, adventurous anglers in the game. Nick has spent the past 15 years pioneering new fisheries, chasing new species, and raising the bar on destination angling, all in areas that few people would naturally equate with fly fishing. Nick, thanks so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be here, and happy to be discussing Dubai and Oman and what we do, and yeah.
Well, you flew all the way in from the Middle East just to sit with us here today. That's impressive.
Yeah, and we flew in, of course, to sit with you, but we will attend the IFTD, which is just a sideshow to this. Eh?
There you go. That's great. Well, you're based in Dubai, which has to be, hands down, one of the most unusual, modern, and surreal cities on the planet. Whenever I'm there, I always feel like I'm on the set of Blade Runner or some futuristic sci-fi movie. I mean, is there any place like Dubai out there?
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled a lot, but Dubai, I mean, obviously it's our home, but it still 15 years later just wows us sort of every day. There's new buildings, new things happening, the bigger, the better, so it's quite an amazing place. And a lot of people turn around after they've been there a day or two and just said, this is an adult's Disneyland. It's
nothing
pretty
like
spectacular. No, everything's new. So everything's built and structured and planned, in the last 10, 20 years. So it's like nothing else.
And you've been there 20 years now. You've been living there with your family?
Yeah, pretty much 20 years. Next year will be 20 years for us. And when we arrived there wasn't too much around. There was no Palm Islands. There was no, there was obviously great buildings, and there was a great economy building, but yeah, I know we've watched it grow, and it's
just exploded.
It's been incredible.
Yeah. Well, before you moved to the set of Blade Runner, you grew up in South Africa, and you got your start in the fishing world as a young man. Tell me a bit about that and how you found your way to fly fishing.
Yeah. So I was actually born in the UK, and moved to South Africa at a young age. My grandfather was a very big salmon fisherman, so he used to do a lot of salmon fishing in Norway and Scotland. So he was had concessions up in Scotland on some of the salmon rivers, and when we all moved to South Africa, he obviously continued that sort of that heritage, and I was sort of brought into it at an early age, and was all sort of bamboo initially, and he'd be in his tweeds and I'd be in my sort of rugby shorts and rugby jersey. So it was two different worlds obviously joining. And then my father's side, we did a lot of offshore fishing. So he did a lot of sports fishing for South Africa and traveled around the world. So I had this sort of mix between traditional salmon and fishing, and then obviously the more sort of big game style fishing for marlin and tuna and that. So yeah, that was sort of how we all started.
That's quite an upbringing. And you mentioned fishing in a rugby shirt. Is that a thing in South Africa? Is rugby anything over there?
Yeah, it's a small game we play.
It's like the religion of the country, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. And obviously the World Cup's going on now, so we're already planning, where we're going to watch on Sunday and
where you're going to celebrate.
Yeah,
there
hopefully celebrate. Yeah.
Well, so you had this great upbringing. Born in the UK, grew up in South Africa. And then Dubai. I mean, how did you end up in Dubai?
Yeah, Dubai wasn't a place that I actually thought I'd sort of ever end up. When I first sort of found out I was actually going to move there, I had to go and look on, I think Google had just started, so I had to go and Google it where Dubai was. And the next thing I Googled was Dubai fishing. And they had actually a very good sail fishery back when we first got there. But I ended up in Dubai. My sort of girlfriend, then now wife, took a job with Emirates. So we're living in the UK. She moved back to South Africa because her visa had expired. I carried on sort of working in the UK, and the opportunity came in Dubai, and she was there for a year. And a year later, it was, I moved over. And as I said, I Googled Dubai fishing, and there was good fishing, a lot better than London. So, packed my bags and moved across, and it was supposed to be a 3 to 5 month holiday, and I'm there 20 years later. So I consider myself still on holiday.
And raising a family there.
Yeah, so
wife
both
and kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fantastic place for the kids. It's we both our kids are born in Dubai, 10 years old and 6, and it's just it's super safe. Everything's new. There's they've built this whole infrastructure around tourism, entertainment. Kids schooling is all private. British, American, whatever. Schools you pretty much want to give your kids. So, the upbringing there is great. And, we've got access to all this water. And Dubai is, it's an amazing place and incredible, but it's just as incredible outside of Dubai. You got this huge open deserts, the empty quarters, Amman, all these open beaches, and pretty much a lot of unexplored places. So, yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
So you found out you're moving there, right? Like so many fishing guides, you chased a girl, right? And that's how you ended up. A common theme in this industry.
A tailing one, yeah.
But then you knew that there was fishing there, so you're pretty fired up. You're like, okay, I can live there. It's not like you were going to be sent to the middle of Nebraska or Kansas or something like that, where you're like, where am I going to fish? But you get there. How did you begin that discovery process? Because there probably wasn't a lot written on the fisheries in Dubai and what the opportunities were. You had to kind of go in there and crack the code a little bit. How did that process go?
Yeah, it was an interesting journey, and we've sort of everything's grown organically. And I think the one thing that I always count my lucky stars is we've been given an opportunity where I think there's not many places in the world you'd have an opportunity like this to sort of, I wouldn't say start an industry because that's sort of going a bit over the top, but to actually start something and build it as you wanted, yeah. So when we arrived in Dubai, there was, as I said, a great sail fishery, which was fairly well recognized. There was a couple of operators there that ran a good operation, and obviously targeting offshore, live baiting, pulling plastics, that type of thing. So we got into that quite a bit. But there was this sort of small boys club that had all this information. Obviously, the guys had been there a long time. We were quite young. We were like 24, 25, coming in there, and, we had a little boat and crappy gear, and, there was one beach bar that we all hung out at, after fishing in the marina, and we really battled to get information from them. And the guys would give us a little bit here and there. It was like, who these whippersnappers, and so, over time, we sort of started figuring out, how to catch the sails, and, we got a little bit of help from them. And so my sort of education background was marketing and advertising. So I was like, well, I want to build a little website just to give out information on what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because people started asking us. We bought a little boat, and we'd go about 30 miles off Dubai, and we had a handheld GPS, and we started catching a few fish, and that's where Ocean Active basically started. So we created a brand, we created a name, had this little website. But what started happening is people started asking, well, can we come fish with you? Can you organize fishing for us? So we went to one of the operators and sort of said, well, can we send you some charters? And the guy was like, yeah, if you send us charters, we'll give you a commission. So we're like, okay, cool. And did 1 charter a month, 3 charters a month, 5 charters, 10 charters. So all of a sudden we're getting this great bit of money coming in. We're like, well, let's buy a boat. So
we can be doing this.
Yeah, we can be doing this. And I set up an old 86 Boston Whaler with 2 150 2-stroke Yamahas. It wasn't environmentally friendly by any stretch of the imagination. And we put our triggers on, and our goal was to catch sails and fly. And between the period, which was 2005, when we were catching sails, it was April 2005 to October 2005, literally all the sailfish disappeared. It was there was a couple of laws passed on the Iranian side for drift netting for longtail tuna and kingfish, and the sailfish in Dubai were a separate subspecies to the East Coast sailfish, which is the Indian Ocean sailfish. So unfortunately, they literally got wiped out in a few months. So extremely sad, because we didn't know what we had at that stage. We had this great sail fishery, and it just disappeared overnight. And then we had this boat, and being South African, and we grew up exploring, camping, and going to sort of way out places. And So we started looking at charts, looking at maps, speaking to divers, getting any information from local fishermen. And there's a place called Musandam, which is on the Arabian Peninsula, right at the top. It's actually borders into the Straits of Hormuz. So we planned a trip up there, and we had all the charts, and we'd never been before, and we'd planned a 5-day trip. We were going to literally sleep on the beaches and just see what we found. And after the second day, I caught my first GT on fly up there. It was like maybe a 6-7 kilo fish on a 10 weight, and took me like 15-20 minutes. And it was probably one of the most epic battles I've ever had. And we landed this fish, and then we realized, okay, well, these GTs here, and it's possible. And we started fishing and catching a couple, and we started getting broken off quite a bit. So we went from, that was on a 10 weight, went to 12 weight. We got smashed up quite a bit, and then we actually went onto spinning gear to try and actually land these fish. And then it turned out, obviously, after a few years, Oman pretty much has the biggest average GT size that we know on the planet. So we went very on a sort of journey down the spinning side, because we couldn't land them on fly. And then when we got back to so the fly side with Dubai and targeting, then we came back online in Oman, chasing the GTs on fly, and then milkfish, then permit, then parrots, then so it's just opened this whole fishery just through exploring and sort of seeing what was there. So it's been pretty amazing journey, and it's literally, we fish for one thing and another thing comes up, and it's like, okay, well, let's deal with this. And that's sort of how it's organically grown.
And there's not a lot of places in the world where you can continue to go through that discovery process as you're developing a fishery, which is, it's getting harder to find these days. But let me ask you this, and I do want to talk more about Oman and what you've put in place there. But back to Dubai, you first start out, you're fishing Salies. That fishery literally goes away, gets wiped out by netting. Yeah, you're still based in Dubai, and all of a sudden, Queenfish.
Yeah.
You get turned on to Queenies. Tell us a little bit about this fishery. It wasn't always there.
Yeah.
And then when it was, it kind of exploded. Most of our listeners probably aren't familiar with queenfish. So talk to us a little bit about the species, describe it to us, and why they call that area home.
Yeah, so the queenfish has been sort of a, like you see in the comedies, where a light bulb moment, where literally that was what it was. So we were fishing in Oman, and obviously trying to chase all these big GTs, and we fished at home in Dubai, and it was a great fishery, and we'd catch these queenfish in it. And then I had this guy called Jeff Courier that somehow found me through an old post or something, and being Jeff, he was like, I'm coming through from Seychelles or somewhere, on one of these wild and wonderful trips he was on, and he was like, I want to come and catch queenfish. And I was like, no, we can catch GTs in Oman. And, and he was like, no, I want to catch queenfish. So I was like, cool, no problem, we'll go out. And the first day, we had an engine problem, so we didn't get out. So now I'm like stressing, and, this is not going well, and all that type of thing. And the second day we got out, and it took a bit of time to find the queens. And eventually we found them in front of the Burj Al Arab, and they were big fish. And Jeff caught his first fish, and in a disco, I don't think I could throw moves like that. I mean, he was, half-fiving, and he was, just seeing this guy who's done all this type of fishing, just being so happy catching this queenfish. And that was the light bulb moment. I was like, and he was like, you've got to do this, and that's sort of where a lot of it started. So the queenfishing in Dubai is, there's always been some queenfish there, but what's happened is obviously Dubai has, developed and built all these palm islands. So they've built 3 palm islands.
Massive, like man-made islands.
Atlantis Dubai is based on the end of the palm. There's 36 5-star hotels being built on the breakwater around the palm. There's thousands of villas. They go for like crazy amounts of money. All who's who, soccer players, movie stars. They all own these properties on the palm. And they've got 3 of them. So only one's been developed fully. Then there's another one which is bigger, which is undeveloped, and they're still developing a third.
And they built them all.
They've pretty much built them all in different phases at the moment. Then they built the World Islands, which is, I think it's 300 man-made islands, which is enclosed by a breakwater. So you had a coastline that was pretty much totally flat. you know, and they've built all this development. And I always equate it to, if you think how Dubai has been built above the water and people have come, they've built all this sort of marine, I suppose, infrastructure that's brought all the marine life under the water.
Inadvertently, they kind of created this entire reef structure that was not there previously.
It wasn't there previously, and it's one of the few times when I like to refer to it as, you know, it's a development that has enhanced the environment. It's just built this massive fishery so you think about it, all these palms and fronds and the shallow water is basically, you know, they talk about the Great Wall of China, seeing it from space, the Great Barrier Reef, you see it from space. I mean, you see the Palm Islands from space.
And if you haven't done this, Google it and look what the aerial view of these man-made islands. It's called, you know, Palm Island because it's shaped like a giant palm tree from above, and World Island is shaped like, you know, like the globe with the different continents. And until you see it, you can't believe that A, it exists, and B, someone would go, you know, have this vision and go to these lengths to create something like this.
Yeah, I mean, the vision of, I mean, the ruler Sheikh Mohammed is, you know, has been incredible. And you know, it's, to see it develop over 20 years has been very special. But to actually be involved with, you know, something that's a fishery that's been developed, it's not, there were queenfish there before, sure, but not to the level that it is now, the bait fish. Because you think that these huge nurseries inside the palms, where, you know, they grow and grow and you get these huge uber shoals of bait that just move out of the palms. And as they move out of the palms, of course, there's queenfish, there's golden trevally, there's kingfish, cobia, but 90% of what we fish for is queenfish. And
those populations have exploded in recent years because of this. And then you get Courier who comes over and he's like, man, these are awesome. And you're thinking, no, like they're not that big a deal. And you're like, he said, yeah, they are a big deal. People will come here. They will make the trip to come and fish with you just to go after the queenfish. And that's now become a huge staple of Ocean Active and your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, for us, it was all about the GTs. And we loved queenfish and it was great. And then to see it through someone else's eyes was a revelation. It really was. And, you know, now when I look at them, you know, I see them obviously like I see any of the other great fish that we target, the GTs, the permit, because literally they are super aggressive. They got a large eye that's all visual, you know, so all of our fishing is floating lines, gurglers, little clouses, so it's all visual takes. They jump, they peel off line deep into the backing if it's a big fish. You know, they got this broad body. So, you know, it's a long fish, broad. It's quite a skinny fish, so very much like a jack type species. But the cool part is they don't try and reef you and smash you up. They'll fight clean. So, you know, you hook a big fish, you pretty much know you've got a good chance at landing them. So the great part that is for us is obviously, you know, Courier arriving, seeing all this excitement, going like, this is where it's at. And literally within a month, our whole sort of strategy had changed. And I mean, this is going back quite a few years. And now it's by far our biggest, you know, it is our biggest part of our business where it's chasing queens. And obviously the great part is that Dubai is pretty much in the center of the earth in the sense of, you know, northern hemisphere, southern, east, west. And Emirates Airlines flies to 150 destinations, and they all come to Dubai. So everyone's sort of, you know, coming into Dubai, business, you know, work-wise. And of course, for us, the great benefit is, you know, working with Yellow Dog is everyone's going to other destinations in the Indian Ocean Islands. And, you know, so we get people that arrive and maybe haven't done too much saltwater fly fishing. And, you know, we got these queenfish that are aggressive, saltwater, 10 weights, you go on a heavier rod, you know, they're jumping, they're smashing you up. So, you know, the guys, they get a good feel for it. And yeah, no, it's incredible.
It's such a cool destination. And as you mentioned, you know, we send a lot of people to the Seychelles, to Tanzania, you know, India, places like this to go chase exotic species. And it's become a staple of our exotics program. We're like, well, listen, you're likely going to fly Emirates and go to Dubai, spend a couple of days. It's a great way to break up the trip, but you can also fish. And people say, well, what are you talking about? We're like, no, it's not just like you're going to go out and fish, but it's legit. You can go out and get into queenfish. The two coolest things about queenies is, as you said, they jump when they're hooked. So they're a really cool fish, but the eat is also super visual. You're fishing with floating lines. You're casting out, you know, a clouser type fly. and you're seeing those eats and those slashes, and it's an awesome experience. It's a great game fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible fish. I mean, it's super aggressive. It swims in shoals. We found them by basically looking for the birds. So, it's all visual. And I like to call it organized chaos because, a lot of the species you fish for, your permit, your salmon, the pressure's on and you miss one shot and, it's game over for your trip possibly. Where the Queenies, we have that many shots that, we're shouting and pointing and, getting things wrong and, striking and guys are trout striking and guys are striking too hard and breaking off. And it is organized chaos. It's, and it's great. And it really is a great intro into those end destinations. So we like to call Dubai a value add destination where we're enhancing the trip. So people are flying from the US, it's a long way. You are basically jet lagged. You are like, arriving here, sort of sitting today, you sort of all 10 thumbs, you literally need that day to get over. And you've paid a lot of money to go to, a lot of these trips. You're taking time away from family, from work. And I always say on your first day on a trip is always difficult because you forget your flyers and you bought the wrong size boots and you've got a sinking line instead of a floating line. So generally we like to think that we iron out a lot of those little problems before you get to the end destination. And working with Yellow Dog and the likes of Alphonse and African Waters and all these guys that know their job, but we know a lot of them, the guides, the people. So we like to look at it that we're a link between the people coming, briefing them and actually understanding what they want to do. So, if someone wants to catch a certain type of fish, you're like, yeah, well, this is what you should be looking at maybe a little bit. So you're sort of talking, just helping a little bit to get them into the trip. So, for us, it's been definitely a game changer. And, one of the big parts as well is the amount of people that we get to meet that come through and just great people. And, people are only there for 1 or 2 days. So, you're meeting all these different people. They're staying in cool hotels. They're having a great time, loving it. And by the time they get to wherever they're going, they've already had a trip within a trip. So, yeah, there's a lot of pros on the whole Dubai side.
So, what's a typical day on the water for your clients when they book a day of fishing with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, so Dubai, the queens are quite interesting. So they hunt by sight. They hunt from underneath. So if you see, they've got a very big eye and they've got a mouth that almost shapes up. Similar to a tarpon type thing, but not as pronounced. So, they need the sun to start hunting. So when the sun comes up about an hour after sunrise, they start feeding on the surface. So they'll start blitzing, they'll start shoaling up, start balling the bait. They ball the bait a little bit like sailfish type, sort of action. And then they'll feed pretty well until maybe mid to late morning. When the sun starts getting too high, then they don't like we don't want to look directly into the sun. They don't want to look directly into the sun anymore, and they pretty much go down. So our fishing is generally an hour after sunrise and then stops at about mid-morning. So all the trips are pretty much 4 hours. We do push 6-hour trips as well, but Dubai, I call, is also like a gentleman's fishing. So you wake up in a nice hotel, you get picked up in a nice car, or you get picked up by the boat from the jetty. You go out fishing, you fish for 4 hours, go and catch a whole lot of fish. You're back for lunch, have a nice lunch, maybe have a sleep, and then enjoy Dubai, going up the world's tallest building, skydiving, indoor skiing, going to the souks. So, it's endless on what you can do. So literally in 24 hours in Dubai, you can, do 3-4. You can do a lot. And, and plus you've caught fish. So, it's great.
I think like 80 to 90% of the people we send over to the Seychelles now, we can't quite insist that they stop in Dubai, but it's heavily suggested because it's such a cool experience. And the Queenies are a great game fish. Now, an operational question for you. I mean, having fished with you in Dubai, that area and the Middle East for that matter, it can be a bit security conscious. So it's not the easiest place to operate as an outfitter. I mean, there's a lot of rules and regulations you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, Dubai is obviously very pro developing business and, tourism is a very big part. So we work a lot with Dubai Tourism. They were the ones that obviously sponsored our film for us, and really great people. But also there is a lot of red tape, to opening a business. Being an expat and a Westerner. So it took us quite a long time to figure out the rights and wrongs. And because no one had done it before, what we were doing, there were structures for, let's say, commercial fishing. There were structures for charters like yacht cruising. There was all these different structures, so and licenses, but there wasn't anything for sports fishing, fly fishing, anything to that level. So, we had to. It took us about 2 to 3 years to set up. Getting into marinas, berthing the boats. You have to have a berthing contract to get your license, and obviously there's a lot of money involved. And so we had to figure it out. We had a lot of help from, like I said, the likes of Dubai Tourism, Dubai Maritime City Authority, where there were these structures, but they were all very willing to help because this was something new. It was something that sort of is fishing based. Dubai traditionally obviously was pearl diving, fishing, and Bedouin in the desert. So fishing is a very big part of the Dubai culture. But fly fishing was no one had basically ever understood or heard of, and still to this day, as people are like, isn't that what you do in rivers? And things like that. So
yes,
but we do it here as well. So it was a big uphill battle to figure it out, and we've got it very nicely set up now that it works, and we've got all the correct licensing in place, and it's not something that there's no gray areas. You have to have all the documentation, you have to have the safety, and obviously being safety conscious, and a lot of people seeing the Middle East as obviously how it's portrayed in sort of news outlets, and that is a big thing. So our goal has always been to ensure that obviously everything's safe, correct, and show people the best time, so when they walk away they realize Dubai is actually a total different place to what they actually thought of before they came there.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, I've now been there and fished with you several times. I have to say, I mean, Dubai is unlike any other destination in the world. I mean, aside from fishing, the city is incredible. I mean, you write about it well in one of the descriptions that you put down in words, but the tallest skyscrapers, the fastest cars, the fanciest restaurants, skydivers falling out of the air, the most exclusive resorts and clubs. When people think of Dubai, fishing is about the last thing they envision. But not only is the fly fishing great, right in the heart of Dubai, right in the middle of all this craziness, but there's so many amazing things to see and do there. And I never even thought about that till I came and spent time with you, and you were able to show me the city and all that Dubai has to offer. It is a very cool, one-of-a-kind place.
No, it's definitely. I mean, I've been lucky to fish in a lot of places, and there is no place that I've come that's come close to Dubai, because Dubai is just Dubai. I mean, there's no place like it. And the great part is you've got sort of 3 million people that are most probably within a 5-kilometer radius of where we're fishing, and we will be the only people out on the water. And we'll be 500 meters off Atlantis on the Palm. We'll be 2 kilometers out from the 7-star hotel, the Burj Al Arab, and we got blitzing fish and queenies and hooking fish up and breaking off and people whooping. And we have had 1 or 2 instances where we've all been almost cut off by super yachts coming past. And so it's just this very quirky type of fishing where the fishing is like anywhere that you'd go in the world, where it's the most remote place. It's in a city where there is action, it's fish, and it's decent fish, and you going into your backing and you're getting broken off by fish. And so that's where it's in an urban setting. And certainly for myself, on all the exploring that I'd like to do, going to Socotra in Yemen, or Tanzania, Oman, wherever it may be, these places where we've explored, having what we got in Dubai is almost contradicts what I was always looking for. And literally, the fishing that we got there is everything that we could hope for. It's truly spectacular.
So one thing, I mean, obviously it gets hot as hell over there at certain times of the year. And you talked about how a lot of the fishing packages are morning. You're up there right after the sun comes up. You kind of do a 4-hour block. Typically, you have good action. You're into a lot of fish. You're hooking up and landing a good number of fish, and then you're kind of done. But tell us about the temperatures over there. Yeah,
the temperatures are wild. I mean, that's our summer. We pretty much July, August is our 2 months that we shut down. You got 100, in Fahrenheit, like 110, 115, 120. So it is pretty hectic. Early in the season, late in the season, it's pretty hot still. So it is nice to fish early morning. Wake up nice and early, get out, fish, and when the temperatures start getting up, we come off the water. And then you're obviously into the AC, and Dubai is built on heat to cope with the heat. So everything's AC'd, everything is air movement. So, it's really, you can tolerate it, at any time of the year, but specifically during the season, which is our winter season, is when our peak season is, because our temperatures then are, obviously very nice and mild, and then the fishing is pretty good.
And you guys are operating about 10 months here. You don't operate in July and August, but other than that, you're fishing.
Yeah, so we fish 10 months of the year. We do still do trips in July and August, but also, the water temperatures get pretty high. So if we do catch fish, we actually can't take them out of the water. So as soon as you take them out of the water, they're pretty much done. So, and it's also, it's a long season, 10 months. So, we send the crew home and we refurbish the boats, and, we like to go fishing ourselves over those 2 months. So we use it as an excuse on a few reasons, but yeah, pretty much, we start end of August and we run through till about end of June.
Nice. And, I got to tell you, some of my favorite things to do, which has now become a part of the routine when I go over to Dubai, is we fish in the morning. You fish till about lunch. You enjoy lunch. And then I always force you over to Ski Dubai, because there's nothing like going from 100-degree heat to indoor skiing, which being in Montana, that's what we do. We love skiing, and it's just surreal to step from the boat in the heat inside, put on a pair of skis, and do the indoor skiing. I mean, environmentally and ecologically, probably the grossest thing in the world to be doing. But the fact that it's there, you just have to do it. And then, of course, the other stop we always have to make over there is Ravi's Palace. That place is legend. The best Indian food ever. Yeah,
so it's quite amazing. The indoor ski slope obviously is pretty wild, and obviously we've had some great times in there. And walking in with all your fishing gear to sort of gear up, size up for skis and go skiing. And then Ravi's has been around in Dubai for a very long time. It's obviously an Indian restaurant that's a lot of the laborers eat there, a lot of VIPs eat there. It's sort of in the old part of town, so and it's recommended that those are pretty much two of the things to do. And even if you look in the the guides to Dubai, they sort of recommend those things, but that's obviously part of what we've sort of built up and what we enjoy a lot. And we've had some good times doing that.
It's just a neat city to spend time in. And, so much of your business, especially on these day trips, revolve around people who are traveling through, as we talked about, heading to the Seychelles or other places. Do you have a local element, though? Do you have regular fishermen that live there and fish with you?
Yeah, so that's sort of a very interesting part that started to develop. So we try and push the sort of community side. We do have some local Emirati fishermen. Obviously, Mohammed did the film with us, and I fished with him in Russia and a few other places. And so we are pushing that side of it, but also there's the expat community, because about 10% of the population in the UAE and Dubai is Emirati, is local, and about 90% is actually expat and Westerners. So there's a lot of people that maybe fished as kids in their home country, fly fish, they enjoy fly fishing, but never knew it was available. So we've got a little sort of I suppose club that we call it the Queens of Dubai. That there's 25, 30 of us. We'll meet up, we'll tie flies, we'll talk fishing. So it's actually formed a little community now. And obviously there's a few other companies that have obviously started doing fly trips. So it's promoting Dubai, Oman, where nothing was promoted before. There's some films being done, there's some articles being done. So for us, it's just amazing that from what we started in, and I mean, it was never, to be honest, was never started to, okay, we're going to build this whole community and, be ambassadors for fly fishing type thing. It was like, obviously wanted to fish ourselves and make a bit of money. And, but it sort of developed in the way that all of a sudden we turned around and looked at it and goes, yeah, this is pretty amazing.
It's happening.
It's happening, and people are getting involved, and, you're affecting people's lives and, getting them into the fly fishing side. And then we've got all this international element that comes through. So, all these great people, and, like most of the guys in Dubai could only read about it and, a magazine they've bought, and now they're getting to meet, different people. And, so it's been wonderful. And it's, as I said right in the beginning, it's not something that we sort of planned, but it's grown organically. And we're just super proud and happy of it. So.
Well, I got to say, one of the things I love about your operation is, you go there and it's not like, oh, well, we've kind of converted this boat from this one purpose into another, and we've got a little bit of gear. I mean, the stuff you guys have is state of the art. I mean, you've built boats that are ideally set up for fly fishing for Queenfish there. You've got, top of the line rods and reels. I mean, everything you're doing right. And I think that's one of the biggest surprises for people that are passing through. They're like, man, you said that Nick and his crew did some fly fishing trips, but this is like proper next level fly fishing equipment, the way your guides are trained, the knowledge you guys have, it's the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the very lucky parts that we've had. And, in the beginning when my partner Trevor, he was, we sat and we sort of chatted about this a bit. And I was pretty adamant. I was like, we got to, if we're going to do it, we have to do it properly. I obviously started coming to ICAST and IFTD, and, we obviously met, and, because I suppose there was nothing in that part of the world, like everyone accepted me like with open arms. And I was actually quite taken aback by it. I was sort of like, Jesus, everyone's just incredible, and obviously, we had a lot of help from Thomas and Thomas, and, Neville being a great friend, got us into that, and then it was, Yeti, Costa, Sims, all the brands that we sort of, like when we came to the US or fished in all these other destinations in the world, were sort of the aspirational type brands. And when I turned around and thought, well, why can't we do that here? So the whole idea was like, if you step on a boat in the Keys and you step on our boat, it's very similar. You got the same brands, you got the same gear. And the whole idea is, a lot of people are traveling to Seychelles, to Tanzania, India, where, you've packed all your gear, you've got everything sort of stashed away. You have to travel fairly light. So, you don't want to now start unpacking everything that you've taken a month to pack and just to take a rod. So what our sort of way that we like to look at is we've got top of the line gear that you don't bring your own personal gear onto the boat just for 4 hours fishing. We got right hand, left hand, wind. We've got all the flies. We've got, lines. We clean and, dress the lines every week. We've got all custom tied flies specifically for what we're doing. Obviously TNT, Shilton's, Cy Angler, Cortland. It's all those brands that, have helped us to provide, I suppose, a service and products on the boat that, we're super proud of. And, when the client gets on there, he's like, oh, this is sort of better than mine.
Done right.
Yeah. And, and that's what makes me proud. And the other great part with us is we've got some great Sri Lankan crew. So they started off as crew, and now they've developed over the last 4 years into fly fishing guides. As far as we know, they're the first Sri Lankan fly fishing guides that are around. And, these guys get on there. So it's not, it's a little bit different. You're in the Middle East, you're in an Asian sort of basically sort of dominated country. And, you got the Sri Lankan guys on the boat. So it'll be South Africans, Sri Lankans. And, it's just this awesome mix. But we're super proud of how these guys have developed, like the fisheries. So, it's just all around is been really great for us. And these guys are super proud of what they do. And, they're all dressed in their Sims gears and Costa, and they're just gnarly little guys and amazing fishermen. So,
well, and it's legit. I mean, everything about the program is super legit, which is from the get-go what surprised me the most. And I think people are just blown away every time they fish with you, which is very cool. Now, I know that kind of the epicenter of your overall operations for Ocean Active are the day trips and all the numbers that you're running through Dubai, but you do have other offerings. You talked a little bit about Oman and some of these places. What else do you have going on in kind of the general region? Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you have, some of the projects that you've been working on and you're continuing to develop.
Yeah, so Oman is obviously this huge coastline that borders onto sort of the northern Indian Ocean, Gulf of Oman. You got Yemen that's sort of on the south of it, where obviously it borders onto the Red Sea, which no one really fishes in that area due to obviously various reasons. And we've pretty much done the whole coastline, camping, exploring, and the same as when we found Musandam in the early years. We did the whole, Oman, pretty much just driving, finding fish, camping, and we found some amazing fishing. And we started out in Musandam about 15 years ago, which was predominantly chasing the big GTs, and we didn't push the fly fishing side too much because there was no fly fishing in the region. But now, because Dubai is obviously becomes as popular as it is, and we get a lot of people that are coming through. Now, obviously, we started promoting the fly fishing on the Oman side as well. So, like Musandam up in the north, you pretty much it's I suppose compared to sort of the Middle East fjords of Norway, where it's these huge fjords, big cliffs, GTs, milkfish, sails, big queens, but it's not an easy fishery because you've got these huge currents, 3-4 knots, big cliffs dropping off. So it is a destination if guys want to try and be a little bit more technical that we can offer. And then southern Oman is, there's a few islands down there called the Halaniat Islands, which has these huge GTs. So we used to fish for those quite a bit, but there's obviously quite a lot of permit down there as well, which is the Blocky, the Indo-Pacific, and the Africanus. So
3 different types of permit you have.
There's 3 that we understand, but the 2 main target species that you can target regularly are the Indo-Pacific, which is the Blocky, and then the Africanus, so one lives on sand and one lives in the rocks. And we've started this season a little operation down there where, again, custom built boats, the same sort of MO as what we do in Dubai. And it's just really cool to be able to offer something that, Dubai is great with the queenfish. It is obviously a through destination as such, and that'll always be our main focus. But there are these amazing other places that are very close to Dubai that can be accessed through Dubai. So, it's sort of off the beaten track stuff. It's not, it's not a big operation by any stretch of the imagination, and it's more, we like to call it like guerrilla warfare. So it's like up and down the coast, 24-foot boats, custom built, big engine on the back, running, gunning onto beaches, walking beaches. And you're literally looking for permit. We get a bream that's only occurs in southern Oman and Yemen. He'll eat crabs, he'll eat poppers, big golden trevally, big queenfish, parrots, milkfish. So, a very different fishery. A lot going on, and that's very rural. So what I love to do is, you come into Dubai, 7-star hotels, you go down to Oman, and it's goats and camels, and just the contrasts are incredible, and that's sort of one of the, I suppose, the big vibes about it. It literally is 2 polar opposites.
Well, we're gonna hear a lot more about Oman in the years to come, I'm sure, and permit anglers, hardcore permit junkies should maybe take note of that, because more and more people are starting to pay attention, and it's a legit fishery.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible fishery. It's the Africanus, he lives in the rocks, so he's basically a street fighter. And last week I was popped off 2 fish on 40-pound fluoro, where I went 20, 30, and then eventually on 40 I still popped a fish off, because you got to stop him getting back into the bricks. And he's eating mussels and crustaceans in the wash on top of rocks, where on high tide, when the wash comes up and the waves and the swell pushes up, so you're getting in close. It's quite, you got to deal with swell, and you got to deal with line management, and then that fish is used to living in those rocks. He swims on his side, he'll do backflips trying to get off the rocks, and he's a nasty guy, and he's all bruised up and marked, and when you come tight on him, he's all hell breaks loose, and it's
dirty.
He's just dirty, and he's not. There's nothing clean about him. He's a mix between a GT and I don't know. He's a power pack.
Well, a lot of people think of Oman, they think of the straits over there, they think of that part of the world geopolitically, and at least from this part of the world, there are some security concerns. What's the reality of that over there?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot in the news, and there's the reality. There's obviously conflict in the area. We've fished the Straits of Hormuz for 15 years. That's obviously a part of where a lot of the action, I suppose, has taken place. A lot of that's offshore. A lot of that is obviously, there's military involved and navies and that, where we fish is a lot of it is inshore. Touch wood, we've never had any incidents. I've traveled, camped on beaches, literally on every beach in Oman, Dubai, where I've never had someone approach me, threaten me. I take my kids, we camp, literally just drive along, find a nice beach and camp. The Omanis are most probably the friendliest people I've ever come across. If you're camping on a beach or you're fishing, guys will come up and offer you fish, offer you to come on their boat, come to the house for tea. And they're very proud people. So, for me, there is an element of news that I think is it is a bit hectic, and they show maybe the negative side a bit more than they could show some of the positive side. But that's not my game, and it's we just promote what we know and what we do. And like I said, for us, if there ever was an incident, then we'd reconsider on how it is and that. But we speak a lot to the coast guards and the military, and there's we fish there very comfortably, and I think it's again a new place, a new region. What we love about it is there is a negative connotation about some of the things in the region, and it's, I suppose, one of our jobs to show otherwise. And especially in our industry and our community is, we love what we do, we love the place we live, we've made it our home, and we wouldn't have done that if we didn't have all the confidence in the world in the area.
That's really well said. And that's one of the great things about fly fishing is not just the places that it takes you, but the barriers it can break down. You read the news, you tune into the 24-hour cable news machine that's just constantly, talking about doom and gloom and all the negativity and the danger and the overhyping of this, that, and the other. But, fly fishing breaks down barriers, and it takes you to places that you otherwise might not go. And certainly you're exposed to, new situations and people that are just wonderful. And that is really one of the greatest things about destination angling. And in this part of the world, that's certainly no exception. I mean, that's what it's about. Yeah,
and it's definitely what it's about. And the fly fishing side is definitely broken a lot of barriers for us, put us in a lot of places in Oman, Dubai, where we would never have been, and made contacts that we never ever had, from federal level all the way down to someone that's pretty much cleaning the marinas and cleaning up old fish, and everyone's interested in fishing. And the fly fishing side obviously is new for us, and it's just broken this whole new world for us. And obviously a lot of the community from manufacturers and like yourselves has helped us to develop something that we're super proud of, and it literally has broken barriers for us that we'd never been able to do ourselves, and I suppose in any other sort of role that we could have worked in.
So what we need to do is just send a container load of 9 weights to Iran, and then everything will calm down. It'll just be that easy. Once they start to fish, they'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, the Iranians, they fish like the Omanis do, and I mean, they people of the sea.
Yeah,
and that's what it boils down to. So I'm sure get a few rods across there, and we're all good.
It's just that simple. We just solved it all right here. The whole geopolitical and regional problems, we've solved it through fly fishing. Well, so last question I have for you, and this is something that was directed from some of your oaks in South Africa. They said, "Man, you got to ask Nick about his slambu mission, his mission to slam using nothing but bamboo rods. What is this all about?"
Yeah, I mean, it was something quite special, and it started for a few reasons. Like I said, my grandfather taught me how to fly fish on freshwater on his bamboo rods, his split cane rods, and I'd never really thought about it too much until we fished in Apalachicola, and TNT had obviously started bringing out the sextant, and they were not bringing it out there. Obviously developed it, and Keith Rosinus, he was using their 12-weight and landed
12-weight bamboo rod.
12-weight bamboo rod. Yep, that's what I sort of said as well. And I was like, we're all sitting there, and this rod came out, and I was like, cheapers, okay, is this for real? And the next day he went out and he landed a 120-pounder. Didn't get into the backing. He stopped it and rolled it, and so I was like, cheapers, okay, maybe he's just a much better fisherman than me. But it sort of piqued my interest, and we started speaking a lot about it. Obviously spoke to Nev, to Keith, to Troy. Obviously, he's the master. He's, I suppose, the master craftsman behind.
He builds all the bamboo for Thomas and Thomas.
Yeah. So met him at the show. We came to the IFTD show after that when I was in Orlando. They had a casting day, so started casting the rods, and I turned to Neville. I said, I want one. This is something I've got a mission. And so we got the rod back to Dubai and caught a couple of queens, and I was like, this can actually work. And then we were lucky; we had quite a few trips lined up for that season. A stove in Seychelles. Then it was we were fishing the Keys during the IFTD show, and then I was going to fish Patagonia in Russia. So obviously sitting around was probably having too many splashes of happiness one night, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to take this rod with me. and I'm going to catch a GT, catch a queenfish in Dubai. A GT and a stove in Seychelles, queenfish in Dubai, tarpon in the Keys, and Atlantic salmon in Russia. Obviously, it was
all on a bamboo rod.
All on a bamboo rod in one season. So quite a bit of laughter around and that. But anyway, I packed the rods and off we went to a stove. And I think the GT was sort of my main concern. And luckily in the lagoon there, I got a 94 centimeter on 20-pound leader and a crab. I actually thought it was a permit. That water in the lagoon was so white. And we were fishing for permit, and I put in the crab, and this thing just exploded, and it was this awesome GT, and fought it in that shallow water, landed it, and that's when I was like, okay, this is game on now. Obviously the queenfish I got in Dubai, got a nice tarpon in the Keys. I got a 50, 60 pounder, and then I got a 115 pounder. And then the last one was going to Pinoy, and obviously Pinoy was probably one of the amazing destination to catch an Atlantic salmon or two. I managed to get the Atlantic salmon as well. And
so you did it.
And the name Slambu came up, and it's so Slam It on Bamboo was done, and I was super proud of that. And pretty much I named the rod after my grandfather, who taught me how to fish, so that was one for him. And so it was pretty special.
There can't be very many people in the world that have ever done that, if any. I mean, that puts you on the level of like Lee Wolf, I think, the way he used to fish. But that's pretty cool.
Sure, I don't know. It was just something that came along and happened, and had the rod made, and whether it worked or not. But I think I put myself in the right place, and having great guides and all these great destinations to be able to target those fish was obviously a huge part of it. And lucky, right place, right time, and
well
super
done.
Special.
That's a pretty cool angling accomplishment. Well, I would just offer these closing thoughts, and I'm so appreciative of you sitting down with us today, Nick, and talking to us about the kind of the evolution of your operations over there, how it started and what you're offering. But anybody that is planning a trip over to the Seychelles, Africa, India, if it's taking you through Dubai, you have got to go and fish with Ocean Active. It is that good. It's that legit. It's so different and unusual, but so well done. And I just compliment you on putting together such an amazing program, and congrats on all the success.
No, I appreciate that. And it's wonderful to be able to sit down and obviously discuss this with you. It's another part in our journey to sort of promote Dubai and what we're doing, and just very appreciative of, like yourself and obviously Yellow Dog and all the people that have supported us through this journey, and long may it last.
Well, more to come for sure. We got a lot of years ahead of us. And,
definitely.
And it's been great. But that's it for this episode of Waypoints, the podcast that is always dedicated to travel, adventure, and exploration. Be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com to plan and research your next fishing trip. Sign up for newsletters and new podcasts. And of course, stay up to date on the latest travel news and developments. Join us for our next episode. And remember that life is short and the list of great destinations is long. No one ever regretted a life of adventure.
This has been another episode of Waypoints, the podcast of fly fishing travel and adventure angling. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to visit yellowdogflyfishing.com for more trip updates, travel news, expert advice, and adventure profiles.